Welcome back to Bible Quizzes. We have another 35 questions for you guys. Let's get started. Number 1. Who answered the king, "There's no one in the earth who can do what Nebuchadnezzar asks"? Astrologer, sorcerer, or magicians? Astrologer. Daniel 2:10. The astrologers answered the king, "There is no one on earth who can do what the king asks. No king, however great and mighty, has ever asked such a thing of any magician or enchanter or astrologer." 2. How old was Aaron when he spoke to Pharaoh? 81, 82, or 83? 83. Exodus 7:7. Moses was 80 years old and Aaron 83 when they spoke to Pharaoh. 3. At what time did Gideon take his 10 servants and did as the Lord told him? Morning, noon, or night? Night. Judges 6:27. So Gideon took 10 of his servants and did as the Lord told him, but because he was afraid of his family and the townspeople, he did it at night rather than in the daytime. 4. To the blank, the glory of the Lord looked like a consuming fire on top of the mountain. Israelites, Gibeonites, or Ammonites? Israelites. Exodus 24:17. To the Israelites, the glory of the Lord looked like a consuming fire on top of the mountain. 5. Who tore his clothes and fell face down to the ground before the ark of the Lord? Joshua, Daniel, or Jacob? Joshua. Joshua 7:6. Then Joshua tore his clothes and fell face down to the ground before the ark of the Lord, remaining there till evening. The elders of Israel did the same and sprinkled dust on their heads. 6. How many days did Daniel and his 3 friends look healthier and better, nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food? 10, 11, or 12? 10. At the end of the 10 days, they looked healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. 7. Who looked back and saw the smoke of the city rising up into the sky? The men of Ai, men of Egypt, or men of Israel? Men of Ai. Joshua 8:30. Then Joshua built on Mount Ebal an altar to the Lord and God of Israel. 8. When they came to blank, they could not drink its water because it was bitter. Marah, Jordan, or Israel? Marah. Exodus 15:23. When they came to Marah, they could not drink its water because it was bitter. 9. Who fled and escaped to Beer and lived there because he was afraid of his brother Abimelech? Jotham, Shechem, or Milo? Jotham. Judges 9:21. Then Jotham fled, escaping to Beer, and he lived there because he was afraid of his brother Abimelech. 10. How many years did the Israelites eat manna until they reached the border of Canaan? 40, 45, or 50 years? "40 years. Exodus 16:35. The Israelites ate manna 40 years until they came to a land that was settled. They ate manna until they reached the border of Canaan. 11. Who led Israel for 22 years and had 30 sons and 30 donkeys? Jer, Jephthah, or Tola? Jer. Judges 10:3-4. He was followed by Jer of Gilead, who led Israel 22 years. He had 30 sons who rode 30 donkeys. 12. Who spoke to the whole Israelite community, and with them he looked toward the desert and saw that there was the glory of the Lord appearing in the cloud? Aaron, Moses, or Abraham? Aaron. Exodus 16:10. While Aaron was speaking to the whole Israelite community, they looked toward the desert, and there was the glory of the Lord appearing in the cloud. 13. Who also crossed Jordan to fight against Judah, Benjamin, and Ephraim? Ammonites, Midianites, or Amalekites? Ammonites. Judges 10:9. The Ammonites also crossed the Jordan to fight against Judah, Benjamin, and Ephraim. Israel was in great distress. 14. Who fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered? Joshua, David, or Daniel? Joshua. Exodus 17:10. So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. 15. What is the new name of Daniel given by the chief official? Belteshazzar, Mishael, or Meshach? Belteshazzar. Daniel 1:7. The chief official gave them new names. To Daniel the name Belteshazzar, and to Hananiah Shadrach, to Mishael Meshach, and to Azariah Abednego. 16. At what time did the Lord strike down all the firstborns of Egypt? Morning, evening, or midnight? Midnight. Exodus 12:29. At midnight the Lord struck down all the firstborn in Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on the throne to the firstborn of the prisoner who was in the dungeon, and the firstborn of all the livestock as well. 17. Who went to Arioch and said to him, "Do not execute the wise men of Babylon"? Daniel, Joseph, or David? Daniel. Daniel 2:24. Then Daniel went to Arioch, who the king had appointed to execute the wise men of Babylon, and said to him, "Do not execute the wise men of Babylon. Take me to the king, and I will interpret his dream for him." 18. Who urged the people to hurry and leave the country and said otherwise they will all die? Babylonians, Egyptians, or Thessalonians? Egyptians. Exodus 12:33. The Egyptians urged the people to hurry and leave the country, for otherwise, they said, we will all die. 19. Who said to Daniel, "Surely you're God of gods and the Lord of kings and revealer of mysteries"? King, Pharaoh, or priest? King. Daniel 2:47. The king said to Daniel, "Surely your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings and a revealer of mysteries, for you were able to reveal this mystery." 20. How many days did the Israelites travel in the desert without finding water? 3, 4, or 5? Exodus 15:22. Then Moses led Israel from the Red Sea, and they went into the desert of Shur. For 3 days they traveled in the desert without finding water. 21. Because of the power of blank was oppressive, the Israelites prepared shelter for themselves in the mountain clefts: Midian, Gabonite, or Amalekite. Midian. Judges 6:2. Because the power of Midian was so oppressive, the Israelites prepared shelters for themselves in mountain clefts, caves, and strongholds. 22. Who made an image of gold and set up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon? Darius, Nebuchadnezzar, or Solomon? Nebuchadnezzar. Daniel 3:1. King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide, and set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. 23. Who allied with the Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and married his daughter? Solomon, David, or Darius? Solomon. 1 Kings 3:1. Solomon made an alliance with Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and married his daughter. 24. What place did the Lord appear to Solomon during the night in a dream? Jerusalem, Gibeon, or Gaza? Gibeon. 1 Kings 3:5. At Gibeon the Lord appeared to Solomon during the night in a dream, and God said, "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." 25. How many district governors did Solomon have? 12, 13, or 14? 12. 1 Kings 4:7. Solomon had 12 district governors over all Israel, who supplied provisions for the king and the royal household. Each one had to provide supplies for 1 month in the year. 26. How long was King Solomon's temple that was built for the Lord? 50 cubits, 60 cubits, or 70 cubits? 60 cubits. 1 Kings 6:2. The temple that King Solomon built for the Lord was 60 cubits long, 20 wide, and 30 high. 27. What did the Queen of Sheba hear about Solomon that led her to test Solomon with hard questions? Fame in relationship to the Lord, knowledge and wisdom, or strength and charisma? Fame in relationship to the Lord. 1 Kings 10:1. When the Queen of Sheba heard about the fame of Solomon and his relationship to the Lord, she came to test Solomon with hard questions. 28. For how many years did King Solomon reign in Jerusalem? 40, 50, or 60 years? 40 years. 1 Kings 11:42. Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel for 40 years. 29. Who built shrines on high places and appointed priests from all sorts of people? Jeroboam, Rehoboam, or Shechem? Jeroboam. 1 Kings 12:31. Jeroboam built shrines on high places and appointed priests from all sorts of people, even though they were not Levites. 30. Where did Solomon build his palace, which is 100 cubits long, 50 wide, and 30 high? Forest of Lebanon, Forest of Israel, or Forest of Syria? Forest of Lebanon. 1 Kings 7:2. He built the palace of the Forest of Lebanon 100 cubits long, 50 wide, and 30 high, with 4 rows of cedar columns supporting trimmed cedar beams. 31. How many years did King Solomon take to complete the construction of his palace? 12, 13, or 14? 13. 1 Kings 7:1. It took Solomon 13 years, however, to complete the construction of his palace. 32. Who offered a sacrifice of fellowship offerings to the Lord? Solomon, David, or Jacob? Solomon. 1 Kings 8:63. Solomon offered a sacrifice of fellowship offerings to the Lord, 22,000 cattle and 120,000 sheep and goats. So the king and all the Israelites dedicated the temple of the Lord. 33. How many times a year did Solomon sacrifice burnt offerings on the altar he had built for the Lord? 3, 4, or 5 times? 3 times. 1 Kings 9:25. 3 times a year Solomon sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings on the altar he had built for the Lord, burning incense before the Lord along with them, and so fulfilled the temple obligations. 34. Who smashed the sacred stones, cut down the Asherah poles, and covered the sites with human bones? Josiah, Joshua, or Nathaniel? Josiah. 2 Kings 23:14. Josiah smashed the sacred stones and cut down the Asherah poles and covered the sites with human bones. 35. How old was Josiah when he became a king and reigned in Jerusalem for 31 years? 8, 9, or 10 years? 8 years. 2 Kings 22:1. Josiah was 8 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 31 years. His mother's name was Jedidah, daughter of Adaiah. She was from Bozkath. That's all the questions we have for today. Remember, put your score down below and share this video with your friends and family. Then we'll see you in the next one.